Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Back to Basics session. My name is Nihal Samara. I'm the General Counsel and Legal Director of gemba360, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's session. Today's session focuses on the gemba360 client and patient record module, and we are going to give you an overview of how it actually works. As always, we'd like to pay our respects to the elders past and present upon the lands on which we all meet. While this session is being run by webinar, we do pay our respects to the traditional owners accordingly. So we are going to focus on an overview of the client and patient record module. With this and moving to it, we find that a lot of health record or client record systems are very much detached in the way that agencies work. And essentially, it is very transactional in the way that agencies are required to provide services to clients or patients. And we called it client and patient record module because we do recognize that some agencies call their clients and some agencies, depending on whether it's medical or nursing based, call their clients or patients. So with it, it is different in how it is used, and it can be tailored depending on what your agency actually uses the system for. One of the core differences that I'm going to start with around this, and I've only got a couple of slides before we jump straight in to the record module itself and show you how it works. And you do have access to it in your sandbox. So essentially, when you deliver, and I'm going to assume that when I talk like this, many agencies will often nod their heads and go, well, why hasn't other kind of software vendors thought the same? The issue that we find quite simply is when delivering services to clients and having to record them in what I'm going to call stock standard software, is that stock standard software in delivering client information is very transactional. Now, what I mean by that is the client will come and visit your service, and then a practitioner or staff member will record that information or certain parts of that information into a client file. Now, whether that's hard copy or whether that's some other sort of electronic database, it doesn't really matter. But essentially, it's very transactional in the way that it works. When we saw this, we know that the way agencies will often work is that they will often deliver services to clients, but you will need to do other things around that client in order to record the information you need to actually run what I'll call a quality service to your clients, and also ensure that the reports you generate from there is reflective of the types of services that you deliver. So when we look at centralized type of service, let's put the client in the middle, and then you might have a whole range of practitioners or other volunteers that support that client directly. And in that case, often the practitioners or support staff members may not talk to each other, but they want to work off a single client file in order to deliver some sort of coordinated services. If we look at a couple of other models when we drew this up, and this is reflective of how agencies actually do work, then you might have decentralized services where, again, there's client is in the middle, but you might rely on other agencies such as PHNs or sexual assault services or community health centers or volunteer networks who may, as an agency, deal with a client, and then they might have practitioners themselves or another GP clinic, for example, that will then deliver a group of services to that client itself. And so you can see that there's different types of models that you can use. But essentially, it is the same process where the client needs to be put in the middle. Historically, what we have seen from other types of systems, be that other electronic management systems is that each of these practitioners, each of these dots, would be where different client information is then managed by different agencies, but not a centralized point for yourselves to use. So what we have done, and let me jump in, is to put the client in the center. And you'll see this being reflected in the Gemba dashboard. And let me bring this up because this will then show you what it looks like when you actually jump in and how it actually works for your agency. So let's jump in and have a look. Okay, here we go. So the client record system, you can see, is listed under this button here. And as I mentioned, this will change depending on how and what terminology your agents use. In this case, we've called it e-medical record system. And when you click on that, what will come up, if you don't have it on your live system, it will be in your sandbox. So a couple of things to look at here. We're going to do a full walkthrough from start to finish of a client and have a look at even some basic case notes and then generate a report under the CHMDS program with the Victorian Department of Health. And let's have a look how this works and what this looks like. So when I log in, first of all, I can actually see that I've got my calendar. I can see that at 1:30, so I am running a bit late, Fred Flintstone Sr. has an appointment here. What I do have is then my message center, which I can then see. And my message center shows me if there's any incoming messages. And this can be centralized, again, via email, via phone call, or the likes, all run off a central dashboard. And when I say phone call, you can actually make phone calls directly out of this system as well too. Emails can be then generated in. And you've also, thirdly, got a client or patient portal that will then send information directly in. So patients can, and I'm going to use the word client and patients interchangeably here. Clients can either email you, phone you, or also use the portal to contact you and messages delivered into this centralized portal of what we see. The next one is the flow board. Now, what the flow board does is actually show me how long, in this case, Fred has been in the waiting room. I can also then see what is the practitioner that is lined up to see, how long has it been done, and what type of visit is it here as well too. And it gives me the total time and checkout time. Now, why this is important is that the way this is designed is that it will record your information automatically, and I mean this automatically, of all of your information that you see in your system based on your funding reports. So you don't need to keep on adding in information if you need, as part of your funding reports, to time track how much time you have actually spent with a client, whether that includes part of them actually coming into the waiting room and then visiting the practitioner. All of this will automatically be generated for you. But the flow board basically will give me all the flow of clients that I have across my agency, and I can actually go back over time and see manually how this works as well too. My dashboard equally will then give me the specific, what I'll call client file notes and information and their record, and basically show me all of their information that I want to see, as well as the past encounters and patient lists. Now, what I can also, which I will just briefly touch on, is at the top, you can also manage your users, and you can also create different permission levels across the system. We've got it set up so you've got front of office practitioners, but we've also included other specific permission levels like quality and risk profiles. So that way, if you're doing, if you have a quality or risk person in your agency that you want to give access to, if you also have auditors that come in, again, different levels where they can see some information or files that you want to give them permission to see, but not the whole thing. And again, you can actually set it up in this way as well. The reports as well too is where all the reports are generated. So
We've set this up so it will automatically generate things like CHMDS reports as well too, and also other funding arrangements as well. And you can also generate these via clients, via clinic, via visits, just about every possible report that you want generated, and you can also customize your own reports as well. So let's have a look what happens when you first log in and you start by booking in a client. So I can see that I've got today's booking sheet, and I've got one person that I've booked in at 12:30, and I can see a summary of Fred's information. If I go to the flow board, it'll also tell me how long Fred, when his time was, and how long he's actually been waiting. So let's have a look at this directly. So I can open it up, and what opens up is Fred's client record file. I can have a look immediately, and it tells me, okay, here's a new guardianship form that's in the message that I need to send, that I need to have a look at. I want to also have a look at the past notes as well too. So quite simply, I'm going to click on View Past Encounters, and I can actually have a look at some of the previous notes, or in this case, what I am going to simply do is open a new file note as well. And it already tells me a visit for this patient has been already done today. Do you want to create a new one or add to it? And I'm just going to click OK, I'm going to add to it. So with this one, I can see here, it automatically gives me the visit of why I'm actually meeting. Yours drop downs may be different depending on your funding arrangements directly. Now, reason for the visit, I'm just going to say, okay, this is our annual checkup, and Fred is coming in to meet to also have a group class as well. Okay, so you can start to add this information in, and as I mentioned, as you're going through, we can then even set up specific templates that you may want to use as well. If you need obviously more space, and some people don't like having a smaller screen, well, quite simply, I'm just going to make this bigger. So you'll find that Gemba can actually make the screen much bigger if you want to even increase the size of the space as well too. Now, idea of this is that once I save this, and if I add in, and I'm going to also add in attended lunch visit with the community group, and we also discussed COVID issues as well too, something of what we see. Okay, so I'm just going to make a case note here. So once I've done that, you'll see that it'll prompt me to actually say, okay, where was the visit? And if they're mandatory fields that you want people to actually complete, or practitioners to complete from a quality point of view, we can also set those in. And I'm going to save that. Now, what we've done is generate that particular item. It'll also prompt me, was any other education resources provided, etc. And we've then got that information listed here. Now, I can go back and also then refresh the flow board to say what we've done. That's been completed. I also want to have a look at the messages in this case, and I'm just going to say, reminded Fred to attend the community lunch, and we will have this form signed off. Okay. Now, I'm going to send this off and actually send the message back to Fred. I've got this information listed here, and here we are here, and I can then send who I want this to be replied to. Now, what happens with this message? Let me just walk you through this, and I'm going to, so with the messages, we are going to send this back to Fred, but what I want to do first is, now that I've updated Fred's profile, what I am going to do is show you how to generate the report from this system very, very quickly. Okay, so let's say we wanted to generate a CHMDS report. Quite simply, I'm going to go to clients, and I'm going to go to list of this as well too. Beg your pardon, clinic. And I'm going to go to standard quality measures report. Here it is here. Now, quite simply, I'm going to click on submit of what we want, as well as the cumulative data set, and also from what date do I want this done. Now, from here, I can actually generate a report, and if I click on this button here, this will generate the report. Now, what comes up once I generate this report, quite simply, is my sample CHMDS report. And the CHMDS report is based on the Victorian Department of Health, Community Health, and I'm trying to get the acronym, Community Health Minimum Dataset Report. And you can see we've actually put in the sample of gemba360 sample identifiers of what's here, and it's just one sample. So essentially all of the indicators that the department wanted to see, I have this information listed here. I don't need to fill in any specific information that we have that in addition to this, but essentially I've got the information directly listed here. Now, what you can also do under the CHMDS report section, and different funding agreements will have different measures, but quite simply, if I wanted to actually email this directly to the department, I can simply click on submit. And click on the submit button will automatically allow me to submit this data set via email. And once it comes back, it will give me a confirmation that it was submitted and what the date actually was. If there was an error, it'll tell me what errors there were, for example, on my data set. But what I'm actually looking at here, going back to the actual MDS data set report, I can see here all the specific data sets. So if there is anything that's blank before I actually submit the data, it will actually tell me whether there's an error on it. So I can actually go in and correct it before I actually submit it. Now, on that, what happens is this, and I can just see a question coming through. Someone's just asked, can anybody do this within the agency, or is this only allowed by set people? No, so it is only allowed by set people. Generally, we're talking of an executive level or CEO or manager of, for example, a nursing center, or if you were a quality and risk person sitting within an agency or corporate services where you had the permission to actually submit information to the department, then it is based on the administrator levels that you actually have here. So it's not up for anybody just willy-nilly can actually just submit information. That's not what this is about. They can't even generate a report if you don't allow them to, let alone submit information off to the department. So that's the way, and it is literally as simple as that to actually generate the reports that you want. Now, let's have a look at one of the message center information. Now, I want, as part of this, if I go back, I want to send Fred an information about something that we need. And it can be something as simple as let's say a power of attorney, or Fred has a question on updating his consent form that we need Fred to complete. Now, Fred can actually access it in a couple of ways. This is the mobile portal that guardians or clients can actually access. So when I click on that and it takes me in, what I can see is my details of what this particular client has. If the client wants to access their information that you've got, for example, like a guardianship orders, that pending documents, and I'll show you what that looks like, they can sign that off from here. If they want to set appointments with people as well, they can schedule new appointments directly themselves. If there's accounts that they need to fill or complete, that can be accessed here and those can be paged. If they wanted to access secure messaging, and this section directly connects with your dashboard, and that's this section here. Let me jump back. So the messages sections, the message center automatically connects directly with the client message center. So that way they are not bouncing emails. They can actually raise questions. You can contact them directly. Here it is here. They can compose a new message to you and it goes directly into the message center. They can also, and I can also see that they are also trying to access the information. Let me just bring this up. And with it, let's just bring this up. And I'll just type this in. You can also attach documents directly to here as well too. So let's say we had the guardianship document that we wanted to attach. I can say, right, here's what they need to complete. Now, here's the really fantastic part about this. You can then also attach a document that you want somebody to sign off on. And here is the guardianship order, for example, that I wanted them to see, like a enduring power of attorney. Now, with it, once they complete this form, they can go in and you can say, right, here's the form that you need to sign. I'm going to select this person that I want them to actually do. I am going to ask them to sign the form. I'm going to attach quite simply the signature that they want, and I'm going to save it. And from here, we can then send it directly out to them. Once they sign the form that I've actually shown you here as well too, it can then be sent back to your agency to actually view. So you can actually get people to sign off on new documents altogether and actually get them to sign it and return it to you. And again, it'll appear in their client record system directly. So you can see how universally appealing this can very much be. It also allows agencies that provide sexual assault services, if there's specific again, locked apps that people can't actually have. Essentially, it's all done via the portal directly. And it looks like just a general chat or social media site. If they wanted to include their own signature on the file, they can do that. If there's appointments or other information that they want to see, they can do that as well too. And it means then that directly from the client portal, guardians or carers or volunteers can also access certain and particular information. It means then when you're running your CHMDS reports and you're accounting for time that other practitioners have spent with the client, volunteers have spent with the client, or community sessions that you've run with the client, all of this information can then be managed directly via the flow board as well too. So you can see that when we go back to things like the PowerPoint slide that I said, at the start of this, you can see by putting the client in the center of this whole system means then that multiple staff can access the system directly. You can then, even if it's decentralized, whereby you might have other agencies that are providing information, you don't forget, you can then give other agencies access to this system to look at just that particular client only and add information in. And importantly then, the work that those agencies are doing can then count towards any reports that you're also then sending off to relevant departments. When we talk of document life cycles as well too, if we had a client that needed to sign a form, which some people don't want to use electronic device, well, that's fine. They can still print off the form, or you can print off the form, sign it and put it back into the client record system. And how we can do that by simply going into the client file, and I'm going to bring up Fred Flintstone again. I can look at his demographic information. I can look at his messages. I can look at past documents as well too, and all of that is here. I can load in any other previous documents that they also have as well. And I can then also set all the reminders and chronic care plans, all of it directly from this dashboard. And it means then that I can then give access just to this particular client to other practitioners, even outside my agency, if I wanted to as well too. And again, someone's just asked, can we then close down particular parts of the file? Absolutely. So you may only want to give the referral and just the brief history and nothing else. And you can also do that as well too. But again, the important part about this is that you can then get them to sign off on forms as well too. And that might be like a chronic disease care plan. That might also be to participate in a community exercise group or the likes. You might have it as a luncheon that you might also put on as well too. All of these types of community support events as well. As many of you know that I used to run community diabetes support groups, and you may also want them to get feedback as well. So from that part, clients, from a quality point of view, all of this information can then form part of the client file. And clients can feel part of their actual health and support care that you're delivering. Importantly, as part of this, running the reports coming out of this means that you can now literally go into it and run your quality measures, and you can also generate any other reports as well. Importantly, clients can then access it via their own portal and also update any feedback forms that you want, and also chat directly with practitioners as well too, in a secured manner. And again, every time somebody does something, it's all footprints are left behind. Now, somebody's just asked, what happens if a staff member is actually away? How do we know that messages are being read? Well, that's a really good question. And someone just said emails are just horrendous when you're trying to catch up with individual clients. This eliminates that. So essentially, people are replying back via their client portal. If you use a generic email, if it's coming from a specific client, like you have their email address on file, it'll actually come up under the messages box here. And it doesn't matter then if people are actually away on leave. You can then, one person can jump in and say, right, where are we at with all of our clients that we're actually seeing? One other person has just asked, what happens if we're running quality audit reports as part of our quality improvement activities? Again, the reports are there. We can actually automate the measures based on individual client reports and client feedbacks that you want. You can set the criteria that you want to have, as well as the fields that you want to have in here. And quite simply, whether you wanted to actually go into, let's say, the client file and actually open up and create a new visit record. Here we are here, and it's literally this quick. And it's going to prompt me if I'm actually required, if I'm wanting to update or create a new file as well. And here we are here. It's all on one page, which makes it really simple for people to record, especially when it comes to things like CHMDS data that you're trying to record as well too. Completing this fields in here will automatically generate your reports. And again, specific fields are added in depending on what funding arrangements that you have in place. I am just conscious of the time as well. Obviously, this fits into the document management requirements that your agency has. If there are any questions that agencies have on this, by all means, please reach out to us on 1300 360 360, or you can email us at support@gemba360.com. We have just started